Hello everyone. Let's talk a little bit about the president and what the president can do for you. This deals with Chapter 7, Section 1, and a little bit of Section 2 if you need to read and supplement things that we haven't done together. Key questions you'll look at are what are the two main roles of the president? What are the traditional requirements of the presidency? What are the benefits of being president? What does the 25th Amendment provide for? And what are the roles of the vice president? All five of those sound like excellent checkpoint questions. So at the end of this, I would come back to these and see if I can jot down answers to them. The president has two big roles, the first being as chief executive and the second being chief of state. As the chief executive, he's the guy who's running the government, helping to enforce the laws, and we can see different roles that he has here. He calls out the armed service and directs the armed services commander-in-chief. He can grant reprieves or pardons, which can relieve prisoners from facing death row or relieve them of being guilty of their crimes. He can negotiate treaties with other countries, but the Senate does have to approve them. He can appoint ambassadors and judges, and is generally in charge of making sure that the laws that Congress writes happen. As chief of state, he does a lot of things that are symbolic. They have no real official function. So whenever someone from another country comes to visit, he's the guy they come to see. He can speak to charities or goodwill tours to generate good publicity for the United States. He can unveil monuments, and occasionally he will toss up the first baseball that opens up the Major League Baseball season. There are different requirements from being a representative or a senate. Constitutionally, he's got to be 35 years old or older, and he's got to be born a U.S. citizen. Traditionally, successful candidates have been male, white, Protestant, wealthy, with a college degree, married, and born and raised in small towns. Looking back through our long line of presidents, all 44 of them, that typically tends to be the case. There are two notable exceptions. Obviously, John F. Kennedy being one of them, him being the first Catholic president of the United States ever had, and of course Barack Obama being the other exception, being the first black president we've ever had. But typically there's a profile presidential candidates fit, and that is that profile. Being president does come with some nice perks. Compared to the $174,000 that representatives make, the president makes $400,000 a year. He has a $50,000 expense account that can pay for personal things around the White House and things like that. He's got a $100,000 non-tax travel account, so he can take vacations or whatever up to $100,000. After that, he's got to start paying for it. He has $9,000 to spend on entertainment, whether it's hosting events or his own personal entertainment. He's got free housing in the White House. Retired presidents get $150,000 per year. The president's staff earn $150,000, and the first lady earns a salary of $20,000. As you can see, the first lady, especially with Michelle Obama, has some roles outside of government as well, as far as promoting legislation and initiatives and things like that. The president has a staff of 100 people. Those include chefs, butlers, floral designers, speechwriters, things like that. Any medical doctor that he needs. The president also has a bunch of transportation available to them, 12 different jets and 8 helicopters. Any jet that the president happens to board becomes known as Air Force One, while helicopters become known as Marine One. Any boat that he's on becomes Navy One, and any car he's in gets designated as Army One. So a little bit of trivia for you there you can impress your friends with. But what happens when the president is done being president, or how long can the president be president for? The president serves 4-year terms with the possibility of re-election. The 22nd Amendment says that no president can be elected more than 2 terms. And this was written after FDR in World War II. So the 22nd Amendment says you can't be elected for more than 2 terms. If your vice president gets elevated to the office, if you serve for more than 2 years, you can only be elected once. Finally, the 20th Amendment says that January 20th, every 4 years, is when the president gets inaugurated or gets introduced to office. Following the president, there's a long line of succession. So we've got plans for something bad happens to the president, the vice president, so on and so forth. I don't need to read the whole line to you, but this is how it works. Generally, the rule is it goes Vice President, Speaker, the President pro tempore, the leader of the Senate, and then the cabinet departments in the order they were created. The 25th Amendment deals with exactly what happens when something negative happens to the president. So if he resigns or impeached or dies, the vice president becomes president. If the office of the vice president becomes vacant, then that new president, who the previous vice president, appoints someone to take over, and the Senate has to approve them. If the president is unable to serve, say he becomes gravely ill or he has a cancer treatment or something like that, the vice president becomes the acting president, but we don't end up filling the vice president role. If the president thinks he's fit to fill out his duties, but the vice president and his cabinet disagree, it goes up to Congress. So say, for example, the president is really sick. Again, maybe the cancer example, and the president feels he's able to continue out his duties, but his advisors disagree, then Congress will vote on whether or not the president can keep his job. The president can also be impeached for these reasons: committing treason, bribery, or high crimes and misdemeanors. It's a two-step process. The House votes whether or not they want to impeach with a two-thirds vote, which really means, do we want to bring the president to trial? Once the House has brought them to trial, the Senate has the ability to vote. So once they've heard all the evidence on both sides, they can vote to either remove the president or vote to not remove the president. Again, that takes a two-thirds vote to remove the president. And the impeachment works is similar for other government officials as well, whether it's a Supreme Court justice, a court, or otherwise. The vice president has three big roles. He serves as president of the Senate, as we talked about with Congress, who casts a tiebreaker vote. He helps to balance the ticket in elections. So say generally a president will pick someone who's kind of the opposite of him. For example, President Obama is from Chicago. He's from the Midwest, and so he needed support from other parts of the country. So his vice president, Joseph Biden, comes to us from Maryland. So he's trying to gather support from different parts of the country by doing that. And he also serves as a symbolic statesman. So if we go back to the president's symbolic duties as chief of state, if occasionally that the president can't fulfill any of those duties, the vice president will step up to the plate and take those responsibilities. Please use these notes to fill in the blanks in your note-taking guide. Would you also please take this opportunity to revisit your key questions? By the end of the day, you should be able to answer the two main roles of the president: the traditional requirements of the presidency, the benefits of being president, tell me what the 25th Amendment provides the ability to do, and provide examples of the roles of the vice president. You should also take this opportunity to look at your review questions at the bottom of your note-taking guide. Thank you for watching, and please ask me if you need any help.